When a ruthless hacker CEO is poisoned for exposing the world's darkest secrets, a fearless bartender saves him, sparking a love neither of them saw coming, and a danger neither can escape. Now let me tell you how this incredible story unfolded. Subscribe, share your heart in the comments, and tell me where you're watching from, because your support keeps these stories alive. Now, let's begin. The city never truly slept. It just flickered, breathing in blue light and caffeine. On the top floor of Nexus Tower, Elias Vance watched the skyline through glass that doubled as a screen. Lines of code streamed down like rain. To the world, he was the genius CEO behind Vance Cyber, the billionaire visionary who secured nations. But behind encrypted firewalls and multiple VPN layers, he was also Ghostline, the hacker who exposed the filth buried beneath political speeches and corporate smiles. He didn't do it for fame or money. He did it because truth was the only thing that ever stayed. But lately, truth had teeth. Tonight, his servers pulsed with something new, a list of names tied to an international trafficking syndicate. Senators, CEOs, police chiefs, the kind of truth that could kill him. He copied the data to an offline drive, powered down his systems, and for the first time in months, needed air. Down in the city's underbelly, neon reflected off rain-slick streets. The Obsidian Lounge pulsed with low jazz and cheap whiskey, worlds away from the sterile silence of his penthouse. That's where Lena, the bartender, wiped down a counter she'd polished 1,000 times before. She was used to reading people, broken hearts, lost jobs, men trying too hard to forget. But the stranger who walked in tonight wasn't one of them. His eyes looked like they'd seen too much and said too little, the kind that didn't belong in this part of town. "First time here?" she asked, voice soft but steady. He offered a faint smile. "First time in a while." She poured him a scotch, noting how his hands trembled slightly when he lifted the glass. Something about him, the quiet intensity, the loneliness, pulled at her curiosity. Elias sipped, letting the burn anchor him. Maybe tonight he could just be. No hacking, no lies, no ghosts, just a man and a drink. But as the night stretched, he didn't notice the man in the corner watching, didn't see the subtle exchange at the bar. Didn't taste the faint bitterness blooming at the bottom of his glass. Only Lena noticed the sudden color drain from his face, the stumble, the glass shattering. She vaulted over the counter before the rest of the lounge could react. Hey, stay with me!" Her voice cut through the noise as she steadied him, his pulse weak beneath her fingers. He tried to speak, but only managed, "Don't call anyone." Then darkness swallowed him whole. Lena looked around. Something about this didn't feel like a simple medical emergency. And in that moment, instinct overrode reason. She dragged him out through the back alley just as 2 men in black coats entered the lounge. She didn't know who this man was or why danger followed him, but she knew one thing: whoever wanted him dead wouldn't find him tonight. If you saw a stranger collapse in danger, would you risk your own safety to save them? What would you do if fate handed you a life tangled in secrets? Rain came down in steady whispers against the alley's metal awnings as Lena dragged the unconscious stranger into the small storage room behind the lounge. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the pulse of adrenaline pounding in her ears. His breathing was shallow, his lips paling by the second. She tore open the first aid kit she kept for bar fights, not poisonings. "Come on, stay with me," she murmured, pressing 2 fingers to his neck. His pulse was faint, fluttering like a trapped bird, but it was still there. She hesitated, glancing toward the lounge doors. She could call an ambulance, but his earlier words, "Don't call anyone," echoed like a warning. And something about the way he'd said it, urgent but resigned, made her trust him against her better judgment. Instead, she scanned his pockets, searching for clues. A sleek wallet, a USB drive etched with strange markings, a phone that refused to unlock. No ID, no keys, nothing normal. "What the hell are you into?" she whispered. Then she noticed the half-empty drink glass still clutched in his hand, the faint chemical scent that wasn't whiskey. She crouched beside him, running through the half-remembered medical tips she'd picked up tending bar downtown. Activated charcoal, milk, water, anything that could slow absorption. She grabbed the small bar fridge in the corner, pulling out a carton of milk and an unopened bottle of activated charcoal capsules she used for hangover smoothies. Quickly, she emptied 3 capsules into a glass, mixed them with milk, and tilted his head back gently. "Swallow this," she urged, voice low but firm. "Come on, stay with me." At first, he coughed weakly. Then his throat moved, the liquid disappearing slowly. His breath hitched again, but the gray tinge around his lips began to fade just slightly. "Good," she breathed out. "That's good." She sat back, wiping sweat from her forehead. The room smelled faintly of alcohol and rain-soaked asphalt. A low groan broke the silence. His eyes fluttered open, storm gray, disoriented, and searching. "Where am I?" "In my back room," she said softly. "You were poisoned." He blinked, confusion turning to frustration. "You shouldn't have." He tried to sit up, but she pushed him back down gently. "You're not going anywhere," she said. "Not until I figure out who you are and who wanted you dead." His gaze sharpened. "You shouldn't have gotten involved." She arched a brow. "Yeah, I'm starting to realize that." Even through the pain, a faint smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You're not afraid of me. Should I be?" He didn't answer, just studied her face, as if he was trying to decode something he didn't understand. After a long silence, he murmured, "My name's Elias. I make enemies." That part's obvious. He gave a slow nod, glancing around the dim space. "I can't stay here. It's not safe." She moved between him and the door. "If you walk out right now, you'll collapse again. And if whoever poisoned you is still watching, they'll finish what they started." He blinked up at her. "Why do you care?" She hesitated, meeting his eyes. "Because someone should." The simplicity of it, no strategy, no agenda, disarmed him more than any threat ever could. "Fine," he murmured. "One night, then I'm gone." She half smiled. "Deal. But if you die on my watch, I'm haunting you." He chuckled faintly despite the pain. "You're impossible." Lena grabbed a wet towel, pressing it to his forehead. "No, I'm just stubborn." For the first time in years, Elias Vance, the man who trusted no one, felt the strange warmth of safety, not from code or encryption, but from the touch of a stranger who refused to let him go. And for Lena, the woman who'd stopped believing in fate, something was stirring beneath the fear, a spark neither of them could explain. Outside, the rain kept falling, like the world was trying to wash away everything they used to be. Have you ever risked helping someone when logic said to walk away? Would you trust a stranger if your life depended on it? Morning arrived gray and restless, sunlight slipping through the blinds like a hesitant confession. The storage room smelled faintly of rain and disinfectant. Elias sat on the old couch, his jacket draped over his shoulders, the color finally back in his face. Across from him, Lena watched quietly as she poured steaming coffee into 2 chipped mugs. He'd insisted on paying her back for the milk and charcoal. She'd laughed him off. "Thanks for not letting me die," he said, his voice low and gravelly. She shrugged, sliding the mug toward him. "Wasn't on my bucket list to drag a corpse through the back alley." He gave a faint smile, but his eyes were distant, calculating. scanning the corners of the room like he expected shadows to move. "You think they'll come looking for you?" she asked finally. "I don't think. I know." He reached for his phone, swiping through encrypted messages. Every line of code he saw looked like betrayal. His servers were compromised. The leak he'd uncovered about the trafficking syndicate must have been traced. "Then we should call the police," Lena said. He looked up sharply. "No, you don't understand who we're dealing with. Try me." "Some of the same people who should be protecting us," he said quietly. "Officials, law enforcement, people with power." Lena stared at him, her heart sinking. "You're serious?" "I've been inside their systems," he replied. "I've seen what they hide, and they've seen me." She looked away, exhaling. "You're saying by saving you?" "I just painted a target on myself." His silence was answer enough. Outside, a motorcycle roared down the street. Lena's shoulders tensed. Every sound felt like a threat now. Elias noticed. "You should leave town for a few days. Go somewhere safe." She crossed her arms. "And let them think they can scare me out of my own life?" "You don't get it," he said, standing too fast. Pain flickered in his side, but he ignored it. "They poisoned me in a public bar. You think they won't come back here?" "Then what about you?" she shot back. "You think they'll just give up because you switched hiding spots?" The air thickened between them, fear and frustration colliding. Elias stepped closer, his tone softening. "I've lived like this for years, Lena. Alone. Always watching over my shoulder. You don't deserve to get dragged into it." Her voice trembled, equal parts anger and empathy. "And maybe you don't deserve to die alone because you think you can save the world by yourself." That stopped him. For the first time, his eyes dropped. Not in defeat, but in quiet recognition. She was right. Every cause he'd fought for, every system he'd broken, had only deepened his loneliness. He sat back down slowly, hands pressed together. "When I started hacking, I thought exposing the truth would fix everything. But truth doesn't heal. It just burns." Lena's expression softened. "Maybe some things need burning before they can grow again." Silence. Then a soft vibration filled the room. His phone lighting up with a message from an anonymous source. "They know. Get rid of her." Elias's pulse spiked. He turned the phone over, face blank. Lena frowned. "What was that?" "Nothing," he lied too quickly. She noticed. "You're hiding something. I'm protecting you." "By lying?" His jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. That night, when she stepped outside to breathe, Elias stayed behind, staring at the glowing screen, his reflection fractured across it. He'd spent his life protecting people through code. Now, for the first time, he wasn't sure if protection meant telling the truth or keeping it buried. And in the shadows across the street, a black car idled quietly, headlights off. Would you walk away from someone to keep them safe? Or stay, even if it meant putting both your lives at risk? The night came down heavy and electric, painting the city in silver rain. Lena closed the bar early, a first in 5 years, and locked the doors twice. Something in the air had shifted. The man she'd saved wasn't just in danger. Now she was too. Inside, Elias was already moving through the small room like a shadow, typing furiously into a laptop he'd rebuilt from parts in her back storage. Screens glowed with lines of code and network tracers. "They've breached another node," he muttered. "They're tracing every location I've logged into since the poisoning." Lena leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "So they'll find us?" "Eventually, unless I disappear completely." Her brow furrowed. "You mean leave?" "I mean erase myself." He said it so calmly that it made her chest ache. "You can't just delete your life, Elias." He looked up, eyes hollow. "It's the only way to protect you." She stepped closer, voice low. "You keep saying that like it's your choice to make." Their eyes met. No bravado, no deflection this time. Just exhaustion and the strange, fragile thread that had been binding them since the night she'd pulled him off the floor. Thunder cracked outside. The lights flickered. Elias's laptop beeped. A proximity alert. "They're here." Lena's blood ran cold. "How many?" "2 cars, maybe 4 men. They're sweeping the block." Without hesitation, she grabbed her jacket. "There's an exit behind the old wine cellar. Leads to the basement of the apartment next door. Hardly anyone knows about it." He stared at her, startled by how calm she sounded. "You've done this before?" She gave a quick, humorless smile. "When you work in a city like this, you learn escape routes faster than recipes." They moved quickly, silent, efficient, down the narrow stairs, through the smell of dust and spilled liquor. Elias's body still trembled from the poison's aftermath, but Lena's steady hand at his arm kept him upright. The basement was dark except for the hum of distant generators. She pushed open a small metal door and guided him into a narrow corridor that led to a forgotten maintenance room. It was cramped, cold, and hidden. The kind of place no one looked twice at. As the sound of footsteps echoed faintly above them, they pressed their backs to the wall, breath held. The moment stretched like glass. Then, silence. Elias let out a shaky breath. Lena looked up at him, his face pale under the emergency light, eyes raw with fatigue. "You okay?" she whispered. He nodded. "You keep saving me. Why?" "Maybe because you look like you stopped believing anyone would." Her answer was simple, but it hit something deep inside him. For years, Elias had been the ghost who protected strangers by staying invisible. No one had ever fought to protect him. He reached out before he could stop himself, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "You should hate me for dragging you into this." She met his gaze. "And yet, here I am." The air between them shifted, tension dissolving into something softer, heavier. The rain outside masked the sound of their hearts beating too fast. Elias's voice dropped to a whisper. "If we make it out of this, I want to start over. No secrets. No masks." Lena smiled faintly. "Then you'd better stay alive long enough to prove it." For a moment, the world narrowed to that tiny, hidden room, the steady rhythm of rain above them and the quiet, reckless certainty that they were no longer running alone. "Do you believe love can grow in danger? Or does fear make the heart see what it wants to see?" The storm outside had faded to a hush by the time Lena and Elias stopped running. The maintenance room had become their temporary sanctuary, a half-forgotten bunker where the hum of the city felt a lifetime away. Elias sat near the small flickering bulb, a tangle of wires and screens spread before him. Lena watched from across the room, her back pressed against the cold concrete wall. For hours, neither spoke. Then she broke the silence. "You ever going to tell me what all this is really about?" Elias looked up, his face illuminated in fragments by the laptop's glow. "You wouldn't believe me if I did. Try me." He hesitated, fingers stilling on the keyboard. For years, every secret he'd carried was locked behind code, anonymity, and distance. But tonight, with his life hanging in the balance and her gaze unwavering, the walls began to crack. "I used to think technology could save the world," he said finally. "I built Vance Cyber to protect people, governments, businesses, families. But when I saw how much power my software gave those in charge, I couldn't unsee what they were doing with it. Lena leaned forward. The trafficking ring? He nodded. They used my own systems to hide their transactions. Move money, erase names. When I found out, I went rogue. Started exposing them anonymously. Ghostline became their nightmare. Until they realized Ghostline was me. She was quiet for a moment, absorbing the weight of it. So you risked everything to do the right thing? Elias gave a broken laugh. The right thing doesn't always keep people alive. Her gaze softened. And now they want to erase you. He nodded, eyes heavy with something deeper than fear. Guilt. I've hurt people by trying to save others. I thought I could control it. But the truth doesn't just set you free. It burns everything around you. Lena pushed herself up, moving closer. So what? You stop fighting? Let them win? You don't understand, he said, voice tightening. They'll come after anyone connected to me. You shouldn't even be here. She knelt in front of him, her hand brushing against his. You keep saying that, but maybe the reason I'm here isn't to be safe. Maybe it's to remind you what you're fighting for. He looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman who'd risked everything for a stranger. The woman whose courage made his brilliance look small. Who are you, Lena? He whispered. She smiled faintly, but her eyes glimmered. Just someone who got tired of watching bad things happen and pretending she couldn't do anything about it. Elias frowned. That sounds personal? She exhaled slowly. When I was 19, I tried to help a friend get out of a trafficking ring. The police brushed it off, said there wasn't enough evidence. She disappeared a week later. I left home, changed my name, and never stopped looking. He blinked, the truth striking him like a pulse. That's why you didn't run. Why you helped me. I saw in your eyes the same thing I used to see in hers, someone who's already lost too much. Their silence filled the space between them, thick with shared pain and unspoken understanding. Then Elias reached out, his fingers brushing hers. A quiet, trembling connection that felt more intimate than any confession. I don't know what happens next, he admitted. But if I get out of this alive, I don't want to go back to that empty world I built. Lena smiled softly. Then don't. Build something better. Their foreheads rested together, both of them breathing in the same fragile calm. For once, the city didn't feel like an enemy. But outside, in the distance, faint sirens began to wail, the kind that carried promises of danger. The world was coming for them again. This time, though, they weren't facing it alone. Do you think love is stronger when it's born from shared pain? Or should love only come when life is calm? The sirens were closer now, echoing down the narrow streets, weaving through the sound of distant thunder. Elias closed his laptop, the glow fading into darkness. They've traced us, he said quietly. We don't have much time. Lena stood, eyes sharp. Then we don't run. We finish this. He turned to her, startled. Finish this? With what, courage? With the truth, she said, voice steady. You said you had names, data, proof. If you can upload it somewhere public, somewhere they can't erase it, then we win. They lose the shadows they hide in. Elias hesitated. It's not that simple. Once it's out, I'll be hunted. You will too. She took a step closer. We already are. The quiet conviction in her voice broke through his fear. She wasn't asking him to save her. She was asking to stand beside him. He opened his laptop again, fingers flying across the keys. There's an old mirror server in Iceland, off-grid, untouchable. If I can tunnel the files there, the story will go public before they can shut it down. Lena moved to the door, listening for footsteps. Then do it fast. Minutes passed in tense silence, only the sound of keys clicking and the rain outside. Then, a deep metallic bang echoed from the upper stairwell. "They're inside," she whispered. Elias didn't look up. Almost done. Another crash, closer now. Heavy boots on concrete. Lena grabbed a rusted pipe from the floor, hands shaking. "I hope you're faster than they are." "Just a few more seconds," he muttered. Sweat rolled down his temple. The footsteps stopped outside the door. A voice called out, cold, controlled. "Mr. Vance, you've caused us a lot of trouble. Hand over the drive and we might let the girl live." Lena glanced at Elias, his fingers stilled. Then, slowly, he stood, drive in hand. "Stay behind me," he murmured. The door burst open. 2 men entered, guns raised. Their suits were immaculate, their expressions empty. "End of the line," one of them said. Elias's voice was calm. "You can't stop it. The files are gone. The world already knows." The man scoffed. "You're bluffing." Elias gave a faint smile. "Try refreshing your newsfeed." The man's phone buzzed. He looked down, his jaw clenched. On the screen, headlines flooded in. "Corruption Network Exposed. Senators, officials linked to trafficking ring." The room changed in an instant. The men exchanged panicked glances. Lena took her chance, swinging the pipe hard. It collided with the gunman's arm. The weapon clattered to the floor. Elias lunged for the other, knocking the gun aside. The scuffle was brief but desperate. Adrenaline and chaos. When it was over, one man lay unconscious, the other limping out into the storm. Elias stood still for a moment, chest heaving. Then his eyes met Lena's, breathless, alive, and unbroken. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, tears welling. "You?" He smiled faintly. "Better than I deserve." They both laughed, shaky, relieved, half in disbelief that they were still breathing. Above them, sirens blared louder, but this time they weren't running. When the authorities arrived, the real ones, the ones who'd been waiting for proof, Elias handed over the remaining evidence. He didn't hide his name, didn't hide behind ghost line. For the first time, he faced the world without a mask. Weeks later, the world had changed. The headlines faded, the city healed, and justice began its slow grind through the courts. But the story that no one knew, the love story, was still unfolding quietly behind closed doors. In a small coastal town 2 hours away, Lena opened the door of a sunlit cafe overlooking the ocean. The sign above it read, "The Obsidian Reborn." Elias sat at the corner table, laptop open, coding for something new. Not to expose, not to destroy, but to build. "You're late," he teased as she slipped into the chair opposite him. She grinned. "I was busy not dying today." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "I still think about that night. How close it all was." Lena's eyes softened. "I think about what came after." Outside, the waves rolled against the shore. Calm, endless, steady. For the first time, Elias wasn't running from anything, and Lena wasn't saving anyone but herself. And him, in her own quiet way. He looked out at the horizon. "You ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't been there that night?" She squeezed his hand. "No," she said softly, "because I was meant to be." The sun dipped low, spilling gold across the water, the same color as the whiskey that started it all. But this time, there was no poison in the glass, only peace. Do you believe love can truly redeem a broken soul? Or does healing come only when we finally stop running from ourselves? Thank you for staying until the end of this story. If even a single moment, a look, or a word touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what part made you feel the most. Your words, your support, they're what keep this family of stories alive. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. The next story is even deeper, more powerful, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Click the video on your screen. Your next story begins there.